And welcome to the Huddle, everybody. I am Jason Barr along with Pat Parris. It's not just a two-person huddle, though. You can join the conversation by writing in the comments, however you're watching us on Facebook, Twitter, uh, Roku, your favorite streaming device. It's a show we do every Thursday at 3 o'clock where we talk sports. Pat and I are going to talk Arizona football and basketball today. Pat, good afternoon. How are you?
Doing pretty well, Jason. As the old saying goes, you can't lose on the bye week. So for Arizona football, not another loss this week.
See, the streak will stay at 16 this week, dating
Yes.
back a couple seasons. Okay, Pat, I saw the comment on social media, best 22-point loss ever for Arizona at third-ranked Oregon. Hey, they went up and down the field against the
Yes.
third-ranked team in the country on the road and had them, even you said, a little concerned at times. Your thoughts on the Arizona performance this past Saturday at Oregon?
Yeah, well, going into the fourth quarter, I think you could tell Oregon Duck fans were a little concerned, and I think Oregon wasn't playing their best, and I think that it showed at times. But I think you have to give credit where credit's due. I think Arizona played pretty well at times. I think obviously a loss is a loss. There's no moral victories. That doesn't get you the W. But what you saw was glimpses of things on both sides of the football that give you hope that maybe they're turning the corner. Kind of reminiscent of some of the things we saw against BYU that were just non-existent against San Diego State and then against NAU. You saw some of that come back, and maybe this team with this bye week is going to be able to build on that.
All right, Pat, so you covered baseball for many years. You were a St. Louis Cardinals broadcaster, for those who don't know. And to make a baseball analogy, when a batter is in a slump and he's hitting line drives that get caught, that's kind of how you know he's at the end of his slump, because he's hitting the ball well. It's just getting caught, and those line drives are going to be base hits the next couple of times he comes up to bat. Is that a good analogy here for football? This team is outgaining opponents. Does this mean they're close to a win in your mind?
I think they're close to a win on a couple of levels. And one, I think you're right. I think they're starting to maybe see some benefits of being in this system now under Jed Fish and under the defensive coordinator Don Brown. And you're starting to see them maybe buy in a little bit more, and I hope that's what we saw. So that's what you're talking about with the, they also say not only you hitting line drives that are out, when you start taking more walks, that means you're seeing the ball well too. I think they're starting to see things from a football perspective. They're starting to see the hard work pay off. But that doesn't translate into wins, Jason. What it's going to take at this point, because of where the talent level is for the University of Arizona football team, I'm afraid, is you're going to have a team have a letdown. You saw Oregon kind of have a letdown, but they're too good. Mm-hmm. Right. And Oregon's too good to not be able to battle back and beat an Arizona in the fourth quarter, which is what they did. But one of these weeks, Jason, they're going to find a team who just can't kind of pull out of it at the last minute.
And one of these weeks, they won't turn the ball over like we're seeing there with Jordan McLeod and his 5 interceptions at Oregon. Speaking of the coaches, you mentioned Don Brown, the defensive coordinator. Let's hear from Ricky Hundley right now. He's the defensive line coach. We interviewed him the other day. Let's hear what he's saying when I asked if the team was close to a win and whether that could be in the near future.
We have more than hope. We've been doing this thing since January. And, it takes time to build. And, I think that the kids have bought into the process. But here again, they're kids, and it takes time to get that consistency that you need to go out and be hitting on all cylinders in all phases of the game. It just takes time.
I'm not a big fan of the whole buy-in thing. I mean, what does that mean? I mean, everybody's buying in unless they're doing their own thing. So I don't love that cliche, but I do think that the coaching staff realizes it needs to be a little bit more patient with these players.
I think you're right. I also think the players, in a sense, you're right, Jason, buying in. The buy-in thing is overused. But what I think that Ricky Hundley means is they're starting to believe in that process of we're doing this for a reason. And yes, we weren't seeing some results early on, but now we're starting to see results. And I think that makes everybody confident or more confident that they're doing the right things and they're heading in the right direction. By the way, just on a personal note, Ricky Hundley, when I was young, Ricky Hundley was at the U of A when I was in high school. And Jason, I was on the field to see a lot of his games, and I can't tell you a guy that was more impressive in college than Ricky Hundley. You know as well as I do, when you see a guy, say an upper echelon player in high school, or certainly when you get to college and you see a guy who just dominates, and you say that guy's going to be in the NFL. Ricky Hundley was that guy for me in the 80s.
Yeah, well, his defensive line played decent against Oregon, and the Wildcats are actually the only team in the country, I'm pretty sure, that has 2 safeties on defense. So,
which is pretty crazy, right?
Yeah,
To have that. I looked this up, Jason, real quick. I'll throw this out there, and you
Sure.
can comment on it. You want to see improvement, right? Because let's face it, the last 2 years, 2019 and then the abbreviated season in 2020, the defense for the Arizona Wildcats was awful. They gave up last year 473 yards per game. That was 116th in FBS. The year before that, 2019, they give up 471 yards. That's 121st in FBS. This year, they're giving up 364 yards. So, 109 yards less per game this year than last year. They're ranked 70th. 70th doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking about 130 teams, you're right in the middle. And that is where you're seeing a sign. I think the biggest improvement I've seen has been with this defense through 4 weeks. It hasn't resulted in a win, but it certainly gives you a little bit of hope.
Yeah, and especially when you consider that the offense isn't dominating the line of scrimmage and controlling the game on a time of possession. Although actually against Oregon, they did do that a little bit. The offensive line actually played pretty well against Oregon. I do think they're playing to the level of their competition a little bit. I think some of the players played down a little bit against NAU, and then they rose up and played against Oregon. So they got to be a little bit more consistent. So anyway, and if anybody wants to chime in with a question or just leave your comment, that's fine too. We'll read it if, like I say, if it's half decent, we'll read it. Pat will read it even if it's not half decent.
Even if it's not half decent at this point.
Right. Yeah. So off week for Arizona this week. You get to watch ASU play UCLA, maybe do a little scouting, and then UCLA comes in here a week from Saturday. So that's the next opportunity.
That's going to be a big game, Jason. ASU UCLA is going to be a very interesting game. We know Oregon's Oregon, and they play Stanford, and I expect Oregon to win that game. But this UCLA ASU game could tell us a lot about who that next best team is, or the next couple best teams are.
Yeah. So that's this Saturday. Wildcats have the bye, and then Wildcats host UCLA a week from Saturday. All right. Yep. So let's talk a little Arizona basketball. So, it's September 30th here. Tomorrow's the 1st. The Red-Blue game, because it is a bye for Arizona football, they're going to play the Red-Blue game this Saturday at McKell Center. Tommy Lloyd said yesterday that he's not going to rearrange the furniture. The format's going to stay the same. We're going to have a slam dunk contest, and then there's going to be 2 shortened halves. So first look at Arizona basketball in a year and a half. Remember, no fans were allowed at McKell Center last year due to the pandemic. And I think the biggest difference that we're going to see, I don't know how much you're going to see this in a Red-Blue game, Pat, but this team is going to play a little bit more up-tempo. It's going to be a faster-paced team. And I know a lot of us were a little frustrated with the offense the last couple of years. I think we're going to see a more fast-paced offense. I think it's going to be more enjoyable to watch.
I think there's a reason why Gonzaga was playing the style Gonzaga played, and I think as we found out, through reports or through just anecdotal things we've heard that Tommy Lloyd was a big part of that, and Tommy Lloyd was a guy that helped them kind of become who Gonzaga had become over the last 20 years. I'm looking forward to it. First of all, Jason, I'm going to go to the Red-Blue game on Saturday.
I'll be there too.
And I can't wait to see a basketball game in person. It just seems like it's been forever.
Yeah. Here's Tommy Lloyd, Pat, yesterday at Media Day, talking about his brand of basketball.
The reason I like to play fast is I just think there's a lot of advantages to it. I think you get a lot of easy scoring opportunities, and you're not playing fast to the point where you're playing out of control or turning the ball over. You're playing fast to create easy opportunities, and that's the reason we play fast. It's not. I mean, I know it might be appealing to watch and everything, but that's not the reason. The reason is because I think it's the best way to win the most basketball games.
If they play like UCLA played with Steve Alford a few years ago, when they had Lonzo Ball, I'd love to see that style of play if that's what he means.
Well, and I think he says we're not playing fast because we want to entertain the crowd. But guess what? The crowd's going to be entertained if they play fast and they play well and they score a lot of points. We got so used to the defense first mentality, which is great. It won a lot of basketball games for the University of Arizona under Sean Miller. But this is going to be, kind of the best of both worlds. I think this team will be suited for running this style. That's why Tommy Lloyd got a couple of these guys to transfer in and got a couple of these other guys just to stay. And I think we'll be entertained. I think we will see, some offensive output that we hadn't maybe seen the last couple of years. And I think that's a win-win for everybody.
And the way to get to create those opportunities on offense is to play good defense and get some fast breaks. So they go hand in hand a little bit. I think about the starting five possibly for this team this year. And to me, it feels like 4 spots are kind of set. I'd be surprised if these guys didn't start. And I'm talking about Kirk Kriisa, who's going to be the point guard this year. I think we've got a graphic too to show this. Kirk Kriisa is going to be the point guard. We got Ben Mathurin, who I think is going to be a starter this year. The third spot, that other wing position, I think is up for grabs. Azuolas Tubelis for sure. He was, I believe, on the Pac-12 freshman team last year, or all Pac-12 freshmen. He's their leading returning scorer. And Christian Koloko, who started last year. Jordan Brown came off the bench the last part of the year. Tubelis really came on strong Pac-12 play. Koloko's good on defense. And that's kind of how I see the starting five. How do you see the starting five, Pat?
Yeah, and you came up with this, Jason. And I think you're right on. I think the guy in the middle that you've got there with question mark, that's still is to be determined. I think that'll play out here during these next few weeks, and certainly we'll get to see them in live games before we get to the Pac-12 season. We'll know by then who that fifth guy is. And I think I'm most excited about seeing Ben Mathurin after what he did last season. You usually see these guys make a pretty good jump, right? Even with the new coach, and maybe because of a new coach, you're going to see some development for Ben Mathurin. He had obviously he had some growing pains, but he also had some really good performances as a Wildcat last year in his
incredible upside.
Season. Yeah, exactly. And then you add into the fact that, he was with Team Canada for the under-19 Worlds, and what an experience that is. And then you bring in a new coach that maybe he can relate to a little bit more. I'm not saying he didn't relate to Sean Miller. I'm just saying I just get the sense that Tommy Lloyd has a way of relating to these guys that maybe Sean Miller didn't. It's just a different vibe they have with the players that I'm getting, that I'm sensing. And when you're talking about Ben Mathurin or Azuolas Tubelis, these are guys that have great international playing experience. And that's one of Tommy Lloyd's, specialties, is these international players. So maybe that's where there's a connection that takes them to a whole different level of basketball.
Yeah, Ben Mathurin really played terrific at times last year. It was his consistency that wasn't there. He kind of disappeared a few times in games, it seemed like. But when he was playing and when he was on his game, I mean, he was fantastic, and the numbers really showed that in his shooting percentages. I think Kirk Kriisa moving to point guard is quite interesting. When you watched him play off the ball last year, because James Akinjo played point guard, it didn't look like a point guard playing shooting guard. I mean, he looked like a shooting guard, but he said yesterday at media day that point guard's his natural position. That's what he's played all his life. But then he also made another interesting comment, and that the position of point guard has changed a little bit. You don't have to be a pure point guard anymore. I know there were combo guards, but and that's one way to do it. But you don't have to be a pure point guard who's always looking to pass first. And so it'll be interesting to see him make that transition this year.
And the game has evolved a lot, Jason, in the way that the NBA has kind of evolved too. You might have a point guard, and he's your point guard, and he brings the ball up maybe 70% of the time or whatever. But once you get going in your offense, you guys are moving, they're switching. It's hard to tell who the point guard really is. You're in the flow of that offense, and it's really a name only. He I think Kirk Kriisa is going to get his opportunities to shoot. I think that Pelle Larsson, I know you say he's maybe going to miss early in the season because of injury, but he's got that experience at Utah. He's got experience with the Swedish team. He can shoot the ball, Jason. He shoots over 40% from three. I don't think he got a lot of opportunities, a little over 8 points a game. He scored for Utah last season. He transfers in. He'll get to play as soon as he's healthy. I look forward to seeing him. And Dalen Terry, we haven't even talked about him.
That's right.
That's a youngster who should make some great movement here. Yeah.
He started for some of last year and then kind of
Mhm.
went into a slump a little bit as freshmen do. Good guy. You know, he's willing to play any position on the court, really hustles on defense. He's definitely somebody who could be in that spot. There's also Kim Aiken Jr., who's a transfer from Eastern Washington. Justin Kier is a transfer from Georgia. Let's see, we got a comment here. Arizona's been missing a real big man presence since Aiken left. Can Koloko finally fill that role, or will he be outmatched in Pac-12 play? I don't think he's outmatched at all. I think he's a terrific defensive player and really kind of brings something different than Tubelis, who's not bad defensively, but is more of an offensive big man. So, no, I think that but if you're asking if Christian Koloko can be DeAndre Ayton, no, there's only one DeAndre Ayton, and nobody's looking for him to be to fill that role. But certainly a productive player for Arizona.
I would add this, we'll see improvement from Koloko because he was raw. We've talked about him for a couple of years now being raw, and there's the question that we're answering now. And I think what happens at times when you have a raw player like a Christian Koloko, they get exposed sometimes by better big men. And you have to kind of monitor their minutes and try to give them spells. And Tubelis gives you that option of a quicker guy that can beat big men. And so you might switch in and out with that. And then you've got Umar Ballo. Am I saying that right, Jason?
Umar Ballo, yep.
And I think, again, another rough project that at least Tommy Lloyd was with him at Gonzaga last year. He comes from Gonzaga. When you've got a Koloko, you've got Ballo. And then if you need to, Tubelis can play that 5 spot if you have to. I think you've got things pretty well covered.
I'm actually a little concerned about the depth in the front court. I don't know that Ballo is a 30-minute a game player, and he fell out of the Gonzaga rotation last year. He got hurt and really wasn't the same player when he came back, and part of the reason why he transferred. And if Tubelis or Koloko gets hurt, imagine one guy gets hurt and another guy's in foul trouble.
Yeah.
That's a small team. I mean, they're going to have to play small. So I think that the depth in the front court is definitely one concern I would have going into this year.
Yeah, that'll be something we'll have to watch out for sure. What do you think wins? I still think this team can be a 20-win team. I think this team can be one of those teams that maybe surprises a few teams, and we'll at least be talking about whether they're going to be playing in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I'm thinking 21-11 bubble team. That's kind of where they were last year. I think some of the guys who returned are going to be better. I think that Jordan Brown is definitely a loss. He was the Pac-12 Sixth Man of the Year. Really, I think could have been a starter. I think that's why the depth in the front court isn't there. And I hate just having to keep talking about this, Pat, but we still got this infractions committee situation hanging over their heads. And you remember, following Arizona and covering Arizona before this happened, we'd always be talking about these recruits, these top, recruits they were in the mix for, and that has impacted recruiting. And until they can get that cloud behind them, I don't see the 5-star one and done recruits, coming in that they need. And that's part of the reason why Sean Miller's went the international route. And so I think that's part of the season is, can we just get this behind? I said to somebody yesterday, it's been 4 years now. They said, they had to wait for the NCAA had to wait for the FBI to finish their investigation. And now they had to start theirs. And now it's into the infractions committee. But my gosh, 4 years is 4 years. Yeah. I know they want this cloud behind them.
I think the NCAA needs to take a look. They kind of reorganize the way they look at these penalties and these bans, and with this appeal process, this committee that looks at it and says, this is it. You're appealing it, but this you're going to have to stick by our judgment. This is taking way too long. They're going to have to come up with a better way.
That it's taken has been a punishment in itself.
Right, exactly. And if that's what they intend to do, then just say it up front. But right now, the punishment is probably far surpassed the crime of what the damage that's been done to the U of A men's basketball program, because, even Tommy Lloyd's kind of said, we're holding back 1 or 2 scholarships because we expect them to take 1 or 2 scholarships away from us. So we don't want to, have to hold those out for, a couple of years from now. They can take them right away. So there's just too much hanging over this program until they come out with this final decision.
Yeah, and that's definitely impacting, on the recruiting, which was going to impact on the court. So I think
Yeah.
that's also, a big part of this year is to, get this behind them and let Tommy Lloyd try to bring in the the 5-star recruits and some of the players who the program has been able to play in to bring in the last decade. So I mean, 20, like I said, 21-11, just kind of a bubble team, maybe playing for 4th or 5th place in the Pac-12. I think, and if they do better than that, boy, I think we'll all be pleasantly surprised.
I think we'll be very surprised.
I'm just keeping my expectations in check. Just based on what I said about the depth in the front court and the loss of Akinjo and Jordan Brown from last year. So, but I'm looking forward to seeing a more exciting, offense though, for sure.
I think so too. We won't learn a lot at that red blue game, but we'll have a lot of fun, and it'll be just nice to see him back out on the court. And then is it tomorrow that you've got the women's media day as well?
I'm glad you mentioned that. So tomorrow is women's basketball media day, and boy, they're the runners-up, national runners-up.
It's amazing. It's kind of hard to. It's kind of hard to still believe it when we say it too.
I'll put you on the spot, and I don't know if you like me bringing this up, but you said it once in the newsroom. I'm going to bring it up here. You mentioned that you're not a fan of Jed Bush. Jed Bush.
Jed Fish.
You're not a fan of Jed Fish saying how he wants to do like Adia Barnes.
Yeah, because
here's why I agree with you. You can turn around a women's basketball program with a player or two. You can't turn around a football program with a player or two. It's not to take anything away from what Adia Barnes do, but I do think it's harder in football. And I think he's kind of setting himself up for a little disappointment to say, hey, we're going to do like Adia Barnes did.
I think he said that at a time where there was so much excitement around the women's basketball program this past spring, which there should be. That was an amazing run. We'll be talking about that run, Jason, for the rest of our careers and into our retirement. As far as what we covered in sports and what we just as fans, how excited we were about it. But it's not. It's such apples and oranges. It's not even fruit to fruit. It's completely different. You've got basically you need 50 guys on a football team to all come together to be a national championship caliber team. You need 12 scholarships on basketball, but really you need about 2 or 3 star players in women's basketball to turn it around. Men's basketball is very similar too. If you get 2-3 really outstanding players, you've got a chance to make a deep run. And so it's just not compatible, not comparable. We're still
I like the spirit of things.
Exactly. And I've never.
And we talked about this last week. I think they were putting the cart before the horse a little bit.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. And I think, as you pointed out, even that bang the drum for every win for Adia Barnes. Well, that was after every win. It wasn't something that you're going to force on people before you even win a game. And that's what I'd like to see is win a game. And when you win that game, we'll be there to the very end, and we'll do whatever tradition you want to start doing after winning games.
Okay, we got Douglas Scheit saying maybe next year. Is he saying that in reference to winning a game? I will say this. Last week after NAU, I said they're not winning a game this year. You look at how they played against Oregon, and they're like, well, Colorado, Washington State don't look fantastic. Now I do think they're going to win a game. I just hope it's not another stinker against UCLA, because it's really been 2 stinkers at home, and then they've played better at on the neutral site game and the road game.
Yeah. Although it was a couple of years ago that UCLA came in here and they were able to beat UCLA, and that was a game where it was
Jed
over.
Fish was on the UCLA staff.
Yes, and that game was over already. And the UCLA was calling timeouts while U of A was kneeling down. And I thought that was classless. No point in calling timeouts when it's clear and evident you're not going to win the game. That rubbed me the wrong way, but I digress.
Yeah, you've got a good memory. When you said calling timeouts, I thought for a second you were going with the Sean Miller against UCLA.
No. I would not.
With the whole
I wasn't doing that. This was in football, to me, when there's 20 seconds left and the play clock's running out, and you're just in the kneel down victory formation,
Okay.
and the other team's calling timeouts like you're going to fumble on the victory formation snap. That just come on.
Well, don't tell
It's
that to
ridiculous.
Herman Edwards.
Well, you know what I think of Herm and ASU.
Maybe we'll get that. We'll talk about that before
We got the end of the season.
We got a season to talk about that. All right. Any final thoughts as we wrap things up here?
No,
you're going to Red Blue on Saturday. And you're looking forward to
going
it.
to Red Blue. Couldn't be more excited to see the new era of Arizona basketball. I hope the NCAA thing gets decided soon and we can move past that. And for football, I think I hope to see some of the football players there at the Red Blue game, and they just kind of forget about football for the weekend, because I know they're going to get some time off, and I think they'll be focused on UCLA. And who knows? You just never know. They've got to build off what little bit of success we saw against Oregon and go from there.
I hope Red Blue is packed. I thought I saw where some tickets were still available. You would think that not being able to see the team last year and with a new coach and everything, people would be excited to go to Red Blue. But at the same time, it's an exhibition. So we'll see if it's packed on Saturday. Anyway, all right, Pat Parris, this has been the Huddle, our fourth Huddle.
Fourth, I think.
Fourth Huddle. We'll be doing this, I believe, through the football season. Yep. All right. Robert Martinez. Hopefully Arizona grabs their first win soon. We're all hoping here. Wouldn't it be crazy if they won 2 in a row? We were talking about a winning streak, but let's just get one. Let's one here.
Let's get one, Jason. Just end the streak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want one more thing before we wrap up. I meant to ask you: are you glad that Jordan McLeod's the starter? It looks like, because you were fired up last week that they did not have a starting quarterback, and they says now he's going with McLeod. He's the best quarterback. Are you happy? Are you happy about that?
I'm happy because he could have easily said, 5 interceptions. That's just not going to cut it. We're going to go back to Gunnar Carew, or something like that. I think what you have to look at is 5 interceptions is horrendous. That should never happen in Power 5 football.
It's not the program record though. Somebody had 6 back in the day.
That's hard to believe. But anyway, 5 is bad. But what you did see is you saw this. He was able to scramble. He was able to create things, and they moved the ball, Jason. They were moving the ball, which we hadn't seen for any sustained amount of time in previous games with the other 2 quarterbacks. I think this is the right move. So yeah, I'm happy about it. He's got to learn to throw that ball away. He's got to learn not to force it, and we'll see if he does. He's got over 20 starts in Division I football. Yeah. He's the choice.
All right, we'll talk more about that next week when they go to play UCLA. All right, for Pat Parris, I'm Jason Barr. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in here on the Huddle, and we'll see you next week at this same time. Brooke will take address the problems of throwing interceptions. Pat just mentioned it a little bit. It had to do with sometimes you got to throw it away. But I'll tell you what else. Sometimes the receiver's got to make a play. Pat, sometimes you do have to just throw it up there and have a little confidence that somebody's gonna make a play. So there's a little bit on the wide receiver, but most on the quarterback, and basically throw it away when you got to. I didn't think the pass in the back of the end zone was that bad, but the screen pass was. You have to look it into the receiver on a screen pass.
You sure do. Yeah,
all right, I'm rambling here. We're going to talk more next week. This has been the Huddle. Pat, thanks so much. And
thanks, Jason.
We'll see you next Thursday at this time on your favorite streaming device for the Huddle. Have a good day, everybody.